Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the beginner guide to World of Warcraft via Shadow Gear Gaming or Shadow Gear Entertainment. As you can see on the screen right now, I currently have a capped 110 warrior who is protection. And that's probably not the best way to start this video off, so we're actually going to go to the create character screen. And in the create character screen, we have a vast selection of characters you can go through. Now, I'll go for the simple ones. The vanilla races are human, orc, dwarf, undead, night elf, tauren, gnome, troll. Burning Crusade added in Draenei and blood elf. In the Cataclysm, we got worgen and goblin. And in Mists of Pandaria, the Pandaren are added. So you can see that the humans look like your typical humans. Orcs look like a bit of a different type of orc that you normally don't usually see. Dwarves look like dwarves. Undead are just bones. Night elf are, hippie tree huggers. Tauren are hippie tree huggers. Gnomes are unplayable. And trolls are a little bit more playable than usual. The Draenei, they look pretty cool. The Blood Elves are master race, and the Worgen, they look okay. And the Goblins, they're goblins. They're not meant to look pretty. Pandaren, well, they're the Kung Fu Panda race, and they're what was supposed to bring in all the females to the game. Typically the female Pandaren was supposed to bring in the pandas to the game, but yeah. So we're only gonna go over things in bite-sized chunks with you guys. So this is the first episode, so we're just going to be talking about races and the classes. And then after we're done that, we'll pick a class, we'll pick a race, and then we'll go in and we're actually going to level. And we're going to make a leveling series out of it, and we're going to have a fun time with it. Now, recently added with the game is allied races. And the allied races are typically the Void Elf at the moment, which is a Blood Elf that has been dabbling with Void magic. Now, we can get into lore as we go through the gameplay, and you will pick up more lore as we go through the gameplay, because we're going to be leveling as a new player. We're not going to be having any special advantages or anything. The only thing that we're probably going to have an advantage of is I know a little bit more than somebody who is going to come to the game. But the Void Elf is basically a Blood Elf that uses Void magic. The Nightborn are basically old version of the Night Elves that are addicted to mana or magic or arcane sources. They related to the Highborn. Highborn are, again, related to the Night Elves, and they're all related to the Trolls. Lightforged Draenei are space goats that have magical adornments, and High Mountain Tauren are Tauren that must have gotten on with mooses because they got moose horns. So yeah, so let's go over actual classes. Now, the warrior is one of the original classes, and for the info on it here, we have this. So warriors' roles typically go to tank or melee. You defend others with heavy armor and shields, charge quickly into the battlefield, and ambush or unleash your rage and deliver devastating attacks. Some of their main attacks are execute, charge, shield wall. Now, for the tank, warrior uses a shield and sword, obviously. Then for fury, you use two-handed swords, and then for arms, you use one-handed sword, or one two-handed sword. Sorry, one two-handed sword. Paladins, one two-handed mace, or sword, whatever. When I say sword, just typically know that it goes to axes, swords, pole arms, etc. They use Holy Light. They can fill a role of tank, healer, or melee damage. You protect the weak with heavy armor, shields, and holy powers. You wield melee weapons infused with holy magic, and you improve your group with beneficial blessings. Some of their stuff is Avenger's Shield, Beacon of Light, Dawn Shield, Divine Shield. So basically, they're a holy warrior. Next, you have Hunter. Typical Hunter, you can be a melee hunter, you can be a ranged hunter, you can be a ranged hunter that uses a pet. And the melee hunter also uses a pet. And then they fill the role of ranged or melee damage. Some of their key abilities are aim shot, call pet, terror trap. You can use your traps to slow enemies, freeze them in place, create damage with a fire trap, such like that. Priest is one that you can be, and they typically fill the role of the healer or ranged damage. Shadow being the ranged damage, and Discipline and Holy being the healing specs. Holy is a full healing spec. Discipline is one of those specs that have a use for melee or for range damage and healing. So they're pretty cool. Shaman typically took on the role of healer, range damage, or melee damage. You're gonna enchant your melee weapons with spells, cast spiritual powers to restore injured allies, and you use totems to disable enemies, heal, and deal damage. Some sample abilities are chain heal, fire elemental, lightning bolt, and I forget the priest's sample abilities are power word shield, prayer of healing, and shadow word pain. Next is the mage. Mage is your typical pen and paper RPG mage. They use fire, they use arcane, and they use frost. And their typical role is ranged damage. You blast your enemies with powerful ranged attacks, wield powerful spells that can affect multiple targets, and control the battlefield by freezing and polymorphing enemies. Some sample abilities of them are Blink, which is a movement ability, Blizzard, which is an AoE ability, and Fireball, which is a single target. Next is the Monk. Monk is a class that was introduced in Mists of Pandaria, along with the Pandaren, and they typically fill the role of tank, healer, or melee. Now, some people might be a bit confused as to why a Monk can tank. Well, the Monk's tanking is actually based on an ability called Stagger. And Stagger basically turns all incoming damage into a dot, which makes it more manageable, so they're really an active mitigation tank. And we can go over what that means later on. But for the introduction part of it, this is what you need to know. So they master the martial arts, they shrug off damage as they move quickly on the battlefield, and you use mystical powers to heal your allies. So some of the sample abilities are Fists of Fury, Keg Smash, and Roll. And the class that was introduced in the into the Wrath of the Lich King, the first hero class, is the Death Knight, and they typically fill the role of tank or melee damage. You raise the dead to serve you, you attack with melee weapons, spells, and diseases, and you start off at level 55. Now, you can start off at 55 now without having to have a level 60 character. I do not recommend anyone try this, because the Death Knight, while it is typically easy, getting into the 60s very quickly is convenient, but at the same time, you don't know how the mechanics work as a new player. This is a guide meant for new players, so you're definitely going to want to try to avoid doing this, but you can make one. And some of their sample abilities are Army of the Dead, Death and Decay, and Death Growth. Now let's go to one that can be a druid. Druids typically fill the role of tank, healer, range damage, or melee damage. Yes, that's right. The druid is one of the only, I believe it's one of the only classes that can fill the role of every single thing. That's right, it's got 4 specs. You shapeshift into Furious, Cat, Ranged Owlkins, and Resilient Bears. Call upon the powers of nature to heal yourself and others, and be a true hybrid able to assume any role. Some sample abilities are Bear form, Cat form, Owlkin form, Healing Touch, and travel form. And this is one of the perfect starter classes, and this is actually probably the class we're gonna end up playing, because it is definitely a well-versed, all-around, able to use spec or class. This is the Warlocks. Warlocks are typically the darker half of mages, and they fill the role of ranged damage. You can summon powerful demon servants to do your bidding. You can curse, drain, and afflict your targets with corruption. You burn your enemies with fire and shadow magic. Some sample abilities are Drain Life, Soul Stone, and Summon Demon. Warlocks, while they say they're only range damage, Warlocks have always filled this role of support. They give health stones, they give soul stones. They can be completely self-sufficient with their healing and their mana management. Their pets do a lot of damage. Their pets have abilities that you can use to interrupt things and things of that nature. So, very, very well-rounded class. A very good class. Rogue is typically your melee damage. They like to hide in plain sight and use stealth abilities. They control enemies with unorthodox attacks, and they combo melee abilities together to deliver finishing blows to enemies and such. So sample abilities are Cheap Shot, Deadly Poison, and Stealth. And again, one of these classes that, you know, it's a good starter class, and you'll end up probably mastering the class by the time you hit 110 or 120. So it's pretty good, pretty good. So with that being said, I would like to just bring it to the last class, and that is the Demon Hunter. Now, the Demon Hunter is a class that's been introduced in Legion. They fill the role of tank and melee damage. They embrace chaotic powers and turn them against their foes. They vault, glide, and double jump in and out of combat, and they start off at level 98. Now, to even make this character, you have to have a character on that server that you're playing, and you have to either be a Blood Elf or a Night Elf. You can't be anything else at the moment, so you can only be a Blood Elf and a Night Elf. So if you're Horde, you're going to be wanting Blood Elf. If you're Alliance, you're going to be wanting Night Elf. And that's the one final thing that I'll talk about at the end of this video. So basically, don't try making this class until you have a level 70, because if you don't have a level 70 on the account, then or that server, you're not going to be able to make it anyway, so it doesn't matter. And then the last final part of this video is that before you do any of the character creation, before you pick a class, you have to, or even before you pick a gender, you have to pick out whether or not you're going to be Alliance or Horde. I am typically a Horde person. I used to be an Alliance way back, and I recently changed back from Alliance, but at the core of my being, I'm a Horde player. So when we do this video, or like I said, we're gonna do this I think we're gonna be a druid. So I'm locked into being a druid on 2 characters on this character, and that's a Tauren and a Troll. And we'll probably end up going Troll, but we'll find out when we actually make the second part of the video. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed. I hope this new beginner's guide will help people who are coming into the game and wondering, where the heck do I start? This is going to be a good starting spot. The next video, we're going to actually make the character. We're going to go through the character creation process, and we're going to talk about what it means to pick a class to play and how it fits to your playstyle. So anyway, guys, I'll see you guys in the next one, and see you guys in the next episode. Peace out.